all right. Hey, that was great. Logical properties, please use them. It's really great to see this get presented on stage right here. Maybe I should turn on my clicker for it to work. Power on. Does it work? Oh, something changed. All right. Woo! This is going to be a great talk. The clicker works. So hi, my name is Bramus. I'm a Chrome Developer Relations at Google, Developer Relations Engineer at Google, sorry. I'm on the CSS and Web UI team. I'm also a member of the CSS Working Group. So if you have any questions about like CSS in general or how stuff gets made with CSS, feel free to ask me in the break or like anytime during the conference. I also run a blog, it's bram.us. It's been up since 23 years now, I think, or 24 years, so I'm quite proud of that. Like and subscribe, or whatever the term is that you use for it, or follow it using RSS. And also in my spare time, I like to go scuba diving. So if you have any questions about scuba diving, also come and find, woo, more scuba divers. All right, great. Now, today I won't talk about scuba diving. Today I will talk about this thing right here. This is an amazing demo by Maxi Ferreira. I think you have seen it before, you might have seen it before, because this is like the poster child demo of view transitions. And I already gave away how it's built using view transitions. As a user, I get this. If I click on the thumbnail in the overview page, I then go to the detail page and the card expands. You see it right here. If I hit the back button, then it shrinks again. So for me as a user, I think this is a great user experience because I get this native-like experience right on the web. Because yes, this is a browser. This is running in Chrome, so this works on the web. And it's just amazing. Now, how Maxi built it, he built it using view transitions. More specifically, he built it using same document view transitions for single-page applications. Because yes, this was a single-page application in SPA. It's something that's supported in Chrome as of Chrome 1.11. So that was released, I think, last year around this time. No support in Firefox just yet. And good news, Safari is working on this. The WebKit team is going full throttle on view transitions right now. They are fixing bugs as we speak. They're polishing up their implementation. So my guess is that sometime just before the summer or after the summer, we'll have view transitions in Safari. Amazing. Now, don't let this turn you down, because you can already use view transitions. You can add them to your SPA, to your web pages, because this is excellent material for progressive enhancement. You add it to your website. If the browser supports view transitions, well, then the user will get the rich experience where stuff moves around. If your browser doesn't support view transitions, well, no worries. You just click the link and then the thing changes. So great stuff to add to your website already today. Now, what is this View Transition API? Well, this View Transition API is a thing that gives you the power to create seamless visual transitions between two different views of your website. That could be going from one view to another, like from the overview page to a detail page, but this also can be something inside of a document where you reorder a bunch of elements on the screen. Well, it's also a transition between two different views, unordered versus ordered items, and then stuff moves around. Awesome. Now, how do you do this? Well, let's start off with a simple example, one that I built for CSSA last year. It is a page. It doesn't have view transition just yet, and every time I click on the document, the text changes. Wow, crazy, right? This is JavaScript code behind it. I added an event listener to the document. I know you shouldn't do this. If you want to change something, use a button or a link, preferably a button in this case. But now I'm adding it for convenience to the document, and every time I click it, I call next sentence, which updates the DOM for me, and that next sentence then updates the text on the page. Now, to add view transitions to this, it's really easy. You take that thing that updates the DOM, so that's the next sentence method. Well, you wrap that one in document.start view transition. And of course, for browsers that don't speak it, remember, progressive enhancement, you add this fallback right here that says, hey, if you don't speak document.start view transition, just update the sentence. But if you do speak it, well, then document.start view transition. And just like that, magic happens. Because now when I click it, there's a subtle fade between the old text and the new text. It just happens automatically. Wow. Now, at this point, you might be like, what just happened there? You just added the call and then magic? Yeah, basically that's it. You just add the call and magic happens. This is the key code that we're calling, right? We're calling document.startViewTransition, and then the DOM updates by that next sentencing in there. So let's take a look at what exactly happens right there. Let's zoom in a bit. So this is my page with the old text. Wow, it's running at 60 frames per second. It's updating, it's rendering. Cool, cool, cool. I come along with my mouse, this mouse, and then I click the page. So my click handler kicks into action. At that point in time, the click handler says, you know what, you need to call document.startViewTransition. So we do that, document.startViewTransition. The color changed a bit there at the top, I don't know if you noticed. At that time, the browser goes, hey, you know what, I'm going to take a snapshot. I'm not going to capture everything that is on screen, and I'm going to store it. So it does that, takes a snapshot, stores it in memory. Now, this is directly fetched from the rendering process, so it's just like the pixels. It's not an extra thing that the browser needs to do. The data is already there. It's copying over the pixels. It's storing them. At that point, something important happens. The browser pauses rendering. So everything that you're about to see right now, well, you as a user, you don't really see it, because you still see the old view, the old page. But underneath the cover, the browser goes, you know what, I'm going to invoke that next sentencing, and it swaps out the sentence on the screen. Now, you as a user, you still see the old sentence, right? But underneath the covers, this new sentence gets placed on the screen. The browser goes again, now that I have updated the DOM, I'm going to take a new snapshot. We store that in memory again, so we end up with these two snapshots. We have an old version and a new version. The old one is on the left, and the new one is on the right. Yeah. The browser then takes those two, lays them on top of your document. Rendering gets unpaused, so now you as a visitor, you get to see the good stuff, and then by magic, it does a crossfade from the old thing to the new thing. Now at this point you might be like, how? Because I explained the what. I didn't explain how. Like, how does the browser know how to capture everything that is on screen? How come? Well, there's this thing in the user agent style sheet. The user agent style sheet, that's a style sheet that ships with your browser and also varies from browser to browser. Like stuff that goes in there is, for example, the background of a page is white, the text is black, it's Times New Roman, 16 pixels by default. Like, that's all stuff that goes into user agent style sheet. And if your browser supports view transitions, well, then this rule is in there too. And it says, hey, you know what? The root element, which is the HTML element, you get a view transition name of root. And that's the clue for the browser to capture that element if you call document.startViewTransition. So by calling document.startViewTransition, we have these two snapshots, the old one and the new one. Well, the browser says, you know what? I'm going to give them a name, and I'm going to render them in pseudo-elements on top of your document. The old one is named viewTransitionOld, pseudo-element, and the new one is named viewTransitionNew, of course. And there in between the parentheses, you see root. Well, that was a name that was used to capture it. So that's like an extra identifier, because later on I will tell you can capture multiple elements on a page. So with these two pseudo-elements, the browser renders them on top of your document. Well, it doesn't do that like flat. It creates this entire tree of pseudo-elements. These get injected on the element upon which you call document.startViewTransition. So document.startViewTransition, that's a document, but eventually we end up placing it onto the root element, the HTML element. Now, in the future, this is something that's not possible yet, but in the future you will be able to call something like certain element.startViewTransition, and then this tree will get injected onto only that element. So here we call document.startViewTransition. The pseudo tree gets injected onto the root, and that's a lot of elements, I know, but we recognize a few there. We don't recognize this one, but this one is like very important. It's the view transition overlay, which gets positioned on top of your document. So your document with all the buttons and the images and the text is underneath. Well, that layer goes on top of that. We recognize two ones here, namely the old snapshot and the new snapshot. So the old one fades out, the new one fades in, happens simultaneously. Then we also have an image pair to isolate the blend mode, because if you do some blending, then layers underneath can also participate. We don't want that to happen, so we only want to blend these two layers, the new and the old ones. And then the group, that one is responsible for positioning and sizing, but more on that later. Just ignore it for now. If you couldn't follow, this is a visualization. So I have this fade in, fade out. Like this is what actually happens in the browser. You have your view transition layer, then your group in there, your image pair in there, and then the new and the old are fading in, fading out inside of one of these other pseudos inside of the image pair. All right. Now, at this point, you might wonder, like, okay, cool, we have this fade in, fade out, but I want to do something else. I want to like scale up and scale down stuff. Can I do that? The answer is yes. Because in your user agent style sheet, this is defined. And as you can see, that's CSS animations. Like these pseudos, they fade in and fade out using regular CSS animations. That's driving those animations, which is amazing because now I, as an author, I can say, hey, you know what? Make it all a bit slower. Animation duration, 2 seconds. Onto the group, it inherits onto all of the child pseudos. And that way, we have this. I click the thing, and it fades in and fades out, but just a bit slower. Cool. You can only change the duration. You can also use like a different animation if you want. For example, a scale up and a scale down. Perfectly possible. You add this to your style sheet, and just like that, oh, and we combine it with the user agent fade in and fade out, that's also provided, and just like that, you get this. Pretty great, right? Do note that the snapshots are nothing but pixels on the screen. Think of it as looking through your phone. If you look through your phone at a building and you want to take a photo of the building, the real building is way over there, but on your screen you only see a pixel representation of that building. So if you say to your picture, like, make the roof red, that won't work because it's only a photo. If you want to change the color of the roof, well, you have to go to the building and actually paint the roof in a different color. So that means that, for example, here with the text inside of these snapshots, I can't change the color of the text because it's a photo of the original representation of the original text. So it's a representation of that text. Same thing with accessing like a custom property that was declared on that original element. You can't access that in the pseudo because the pseudo is like rendered way on top of your DOM tree and not with the element itself. So you can't do that. Good thing though is that these new snapshots, they are a live representation of what is happening. And you can see that right here. Look at the video. So this one doesn't have a video. Now look at the ping box with the video. The video keeps playing as it grows bigger and smaller. So the old snapshot is basically a photo. The new snapshot is roughly a video of the new thing. So I think that's very, very cool. So right now we have transitioned one thing. We just transitioned the root element, which got captured and animated. What about multiple elements? Well, here's a demo by my colleague, Adam Argyle. Every time he clicks on it, he changes the alignment of a grid so that the box just switches position at the start or at the end. This is the code for it, and it's roughly the same code as I had before because you see that's one line in there. Document.start view transition with the update DOM callback wrapped inside of it. By default, you get this one in your user agent style sheet, but you as an author, you can also use that view transition name property. Like if you want, you can say like, hey, you know what, that blue box that you had there, you also get a view transition name. And at that point, the browser will not only capture the root element, it will also capture that box. It will create like two separate things, the backdrop and the box. And if you do that, this happens. Every time you click, the alignment gets updated, document.start view transition captures all the stuff, and things move around on the screen automatically. So looking at our pseudo tree, before we had this one with the root stuff injected on it, well, right now our pseudo tree looks something like this. We also have a separate group image pair and all the new snapshots of that blue box. Remember when I said this? The group positions everything on the screen? Well, that's what you see right here. The box can actually move because it's that group thingy that is moving from its old position, which was at the center, to, for example, to one of the corners. So the group moves, and while that happens, the new and the old fade in and fade out. If that's something you can't visualize, no worries, I made an updated visualization. And here the box also grows a bit and changes color, but right now you see you have your view transition overlay, and in there you have your group for the root and the box. The group itself moves, and then the new and the old fade in and fade out. I added an outline here to see what happens. So you see like, okay, and I'm also changing the background color. So you can see like, okay, you have these two separate layers that get animated. It's also a bit wasteful, right now. Like this view transition root, the root element is being captured as the view transition name root element. It doesn't really change, like only the box changes. So if you want to unset a view transition name, you can perfectly do that. You use the value of none, which is a keyword in CSS. And at that point, like only the box gets captured. One thing to note with this, so yeah, you only end up with this pseudo tree. Cool, right? One thing you note with this is that if you rage-click the page to like restart a new view transition, it won't work because this overlay is capturing all of the clicks. So you need a way like if you want to keep it responsive so that you're able to click stuff underneath, well, you need to disable something on this view transition overlay. Well, thanks to CSS, it's like just a one-liner because you can say, hey, you know what, this view transition overlay thing, you get pointer events none. So every time that you click on it, the clicks fall through onto the document. And that way you end up with this. So I click, it moves, I click, it moves, I click, it moves, I click, it moves again, and so on. And then I can rage click. I think I'm rage clicking. Yeah. We all do that, right? Submit, submit, submit. One thing you might have noticed though, like if I have a view transition running and I click and then I start a new view transition, the old view transition will skip to the end. This is something that is how it is now. In the future, we hope to maybe open up, we're looking into it, no promises there, but I think it would be cool if you had like retargetable view transitions. So as the box is moving and you interrupt it, then it like changes its path. That would be so cool, but right now it's only something in my imagination. We hope to find a solution for that. Do note though, the group itself also catches all the clicks. So the blue box itself, it also catches the clicks, and you can't disable that one. It has to do with some security things and also some UX things, because like if a button is fading out and moving, then you don't want to like hit that button as it is going away, because underneath like the DOM has already updated, so that's a bit tricky. All right, so all together now, let's take a look at Maxi's demo. How did Maxi implement that? Well, he called document.start view transition, but there was like a few steps, well, one step before that, namely, they identified and named every element that they want to transition on that page. The two states are shown here. So on the left, you have the first state, the overview state. On the right, we have the detail state. And then it's a matter of starting like to just point at things and say, hey, that's your name now, and that's your name now. And preferably see a link between two pages. So on the left here, I recognize the card. And on the right, well, that's also the card, right? Do note that it's only the black box itself, because inside of it, I can also identify a few things. For example, this is the cover photo. Well, on the right, we also have the cover photo. That one should like grow and expand as it goes from the overview to the detail page. We have our controls there on the left, and also our controls here on the right. And yes, there's a difference here. Like the controls on the left only have 3 buttons, but on the right they have 5 buttons. That's no problem. You can perfectly transition from one thing to another thing if it's like a different element or if it has more content inside of it. No worries, because it's snapshots. Then we go along, we recognize a title, we recognize the avatar that should move, the button, and so on and so on. Interesting to note is as well, the description is something that is only there in the new page. So that one, for example, should like fade in, not fade out. And then also on the old page, we also have the top bar. So as you go from the overview to the detail, the top bar should like slide out. So that's all the key parts that we can identify between these two views and link them together. So you add the view transition names to there. For example, the card on the old view and on the new view, you get the view transition name card. On the old view, for example, the title, that was the H2. And on the new page, that's the H1. So you can perfectly like morph from one element to another. Like if you want, you can morph a button to an image and an image to a piece of text, because it's all snapshots. That's why it works. So you add these, you add a bunch more. Then you trigger the view transition by calling document.start view transition. We've already seen that. And then you customize animations using CSS. I won't bore you with it. It's a long piece of code. And that's how you have this demo. I think that's cool. There's some more things that you can do. Here are some more demos. For example, here I am changing the gap between cells and changing how much cells a certain item should span inside of a CSS grid. You wrap that inside of document.startView transition, and then you have an animated grid. I think this is so cool. Like, this is how grid should have behaved from the start, I think. Here's another one, isotope. You might remember that. Well, isotope, you can now do it with view transitions. You wrap it in document.startView transition, and you're there. And also, it uses some bouncing, some different timings, some delays, and whatnot. And so this all works. And here's another one. This is an accordion where you open up the items, and the text grows a bit bigger. The arrow rotates as you click it. So this is all, again, using view transitions. Now, that was same document view transitions. Still got 10 minutes to go, perfectly on time. And these are basically the 3 steps. So you identify and name stuff, you trigger the view transition, and then optionally you customize the animations using CSS, and by default you get a fade in and fade out. Do note that this is only the tip of the iceberg. Like, there's a lot more to say about view transitions, all the things shown here on screen. And like I've explained to you the snapshotting process and how the pseudo tree is constructed, but there's more things to tell you about, but unfortunately we are limited in time. One thing I do want to mention you though is the promises part. Because whenever you create a view transition, by calling document.startView transition, you get back a view transition object. And on this object, there are several promises exposed so that you can skip the transition if you want. You can do that, by the way, by calling transition.skipViewTransition, and then it will skip the transition. So for example, you can wait until the update callback inside of it has been executed. So it has the old snapshots and the DOM has been updated. Then there's another key point that you can await, which is when both of the snapshots have been taken and the pseudo tree has been constructed. And then also you can await the finished one, which is handy if you want to do some cleanup afterwards. Like after your view transition ran, then you do some cleanup. You can use these promises. If you want to know more, there's a bunch of docs that we have up. It's on this link. Yeah, feel free to check it out because it explains everything really well in detail. Big kudos to Jake Archibald, by the way, who was one of the main driving forces behind view transitions. So thank you, Jake. We owe a lot to you in this. Now, you might be wondering, okay, this talk is about MPA view transitions, right? Well, good news. We are soon shipping it. Cross-document view transitions for multi-page applications is shipping in Chrome 1.26, which is to be released 2 or 3 weeks from now. So keep an eye on. And I think this is like a huge milestone for the web, because this means that you no longer need to re-architect your web app to an SPA in order to use view transitions. You can just click a link from one page to the other, and you can have these rich view transitions in between those pages. It will feel very familiar, though, because if you look at the 3 steps for SPA, we have name it, trigger it, and then customize using CSS, the animations. Well, the only thing that's different between the two is the trigger. Instead of calling document.startView transition, this now gets replaced by a navigation which is, for example, following a link. You go from one page to another page. Wow. This could also be, for example, a form submission. Or also if you want back and forwards between 2 pages that you visited, that can also be a view transition because that's a navigation between 2 pages. There's 2 conditions though. We won't do this by default. There's 2 conditions though before your view transition between 2 pages can actually run. And the first condition is that both of these pages need to live on the same origin. The origin of a page, that's a combination of the scheme, the hostname, and the port. So this one needs to be the same between the 2 participating pages. So you can have a view transition from example.org to example.org/login, because that's same origin. But you can't have a view transition from example.org to login.example.org, because that's, even though it's the same site, it's a different origin. It's cross-origin. So here you can't have a view transition. Spoiler, we hope to relax this restriction soon. So hopefully same site, cross-origin, something that we can ship soon. To have cross-site view transitions, that's a bit more tricky and needs a bit more work. I'm not sure if we'll ever be able to ship that because of security concerns. Because if we did that by default, then the side of an attacker could have access to the pixel data which was captured on the old page, and you don't want that to happen. So they need to be same site, same origin for now. Maybe we can relax that a little bit in the future. And then the second condition is that both pages need to opt in to allowing MPA view transitions. And it's really easy. You add this into your CSS, and it works. It says navigation auto, and that means we are opting in, that you are opting in to allowing view transitions when you are traversing the history, when an item gets pushed on it or replaced on your history, when it's not browser UI that triggers it. So for example, if you click a link, you can have a transition. If you have a page open and you open a bookmark on the same origin, then you won't have a view transition because that was the browser UI that initiated the navigation. If you were following this, like as of since last year, because we had this in experimental for quite a while, you might recall the meta tag that was used to opt in. Well, the meta tag is no longer valid. It doesn't do anything more. This is the way how you opt in to MPA view transitions. And here's an example. These are just links from one page to another. And I have this stack-like navigator, and I hit back, and it pops off again. So stuff pops on, stuff pops off. I think this is really, really cool. Now you might wonder, okay, whoa, you're going from one page to the other, and then this view transition stuff happens? Like, when does this view transition object get created? Well, it's a bit complicated, to be honest. So we are on the overview page. We come along with our mouse. Again, this mouse. And we click on the page, and then the navigation to the detail page is started. So this detail page is loading, loading, loading. And once enough HTML has streamed in, the browser will be like, hey, you know what? I can render this detail page. I can show it to you as a user. So after a certain while, this one is loading, loading, loading. It says, okay, I have enough data. I can render this on the screen. But at that point in time, a view transition object gets created on the old page. It takes a snapshot of that old page, stores it in memory, and then that view transition on the old page gets skipped. Yes, like that. And then on the new page, before it actually gets rendered, we create a new view transition object. So it's a different one. It then captures the new snapshots, which it stores in memory. It also gets copied over the old snapshots. And then when you have that, then the view transition will actually run, and you as a user get to see the page. If you're wondering about customization, because sometimes you do want it, right? If you're going from the overview page to the detail page, you might want to run this one animation that says, like, scale the image. If you clicked on the thumbnail, make the thumbnail bigger, and if you go back, well, shrink the thumbnail. But you maybe don't want that when going from overview to about or from detail to about. There you might just want to like crossfade the main HTML and not all the other stuff. So how can you like hook into the creation of these view transition objects? Because you do want to control it. You do want to like change, like, no, now capture this element or now capture that element. So there's a bunch of things that are a possibility, because there's a ton of events getting dispatched on the old page. And there's also a ton of events getting, well, only two, getting dispatched on the new page. So which one of these could you possibly use? Well, the problem here is that the answer here is none. Because the problem is that either all of these events fire too early or fire too late. Like the navigate event, that one fires when the navigation gets initiated, but you don't have access to like the final destination URL. And it could be that your destination gets redirected to a different origin. Page height, for example, fires too late, because at that point, the last frame already got rendered. And maybe you want to like change the view transition names before that last frame actually gets rendered. So to allow you to do that, we came up with two new events that you can use. It's called page swap and page reveal, and these get triggered at the window level. These events always get fired for every same origin navigation. And if a view transition is happening, in there you have access to a view transition object. So on the old page to the old object, on the new page to the new page object. And here's a demo where I use this. I click on Adam's name, and then Adam grows bigger. I click on back, he shrinks again. I click on my name, and my avatar grows bigger. I click on Yuna, and Yuna's name grows bigger. So I on the fly determine which elements that I need to capture. You clicked on Yuna, well, then Yuna's avatar and Yuna's name are the ones that should be captured in the snapshots and participate. And this is the code for it. So I added a page swap event listener on the old page. I'm extracting information from the current and the destination URL. And depending on that one, I am adding view transition names to specific elements. Don't forget to clean up afterwards, by the way. Because if you changed that, and then on a new page you do the same, it will work. But if you then hit your browser's back button, it won't work. Because then on your old page reveal will trigger and page swap won't. And so you need to do cleanup. That's the important part right here. And then this is the code on the new page. I basically do the same. I check the URLs. How am I possible to check that? Well, that's thanks to the navigation activation information. So on the page swap, on the old page, we have e.activation. It's a part of that event object that you get passed into the handler. And then on the new page, we have navigation.activation, which you can read. And the entries look something like this, which is basically navigation history entries from the navigation API, which is a great API, by the way. I can all recommend it to you. One more thing, the last thing I want to mention is render blocking. Remember this one right here? So when you have the overview page and then the new page is loading, well, the browser will automatically say, okay, I've got enough HTML, I'm going to render it, do the view transition. But maybe you want to capture a certain element that's at the far bottom of the DOM for whatever reason. Maybe you want to hold off the rendering until that element is present in the DOM. If you want, you can do this using this meta tag. So you say, hey, you know what, block rendering until this element is present in the DOM. Do note that it only means that the element is there in the DOM, not that it's loaded. For example, an image, the mere presence of the img tag with that ID is enough for the condition to evaluate to true. The image itself could still be loading. To close off, this was cross-document view transitions, shipping in Chrome 126, which is out soon. We have a bunch of documentation of that as well up on developer.chrome.com. All of the demos that I have shown you, all the MPA demos that I have shown you, are available on viewtransitions.netlify.app. And with that, I'm at the end of my talk, and I want to thank you for your attention.